Many types of media display racism throughout America and throughout the world. Some movies depict racism negatively, while others help Americans have a better understanding of racism in history and in modern-day society. Knowledge and education of the history of racism in America helps us as Americans to understand that racism still exists in modern-day society. We must first understand our past in order to learn from movies such as American History X and Gran Torino. American History X and Gran Torino display racism in America against two different races. Racism has affected the U.S. since the era of slavery and the colonial era. Racism has been shown against Native Americans, African Americans, Asian Americans, and Latin Americans. During the 17th century into the 1960s, European Americans held the rights throughout the country, while Native, African, Asian, and Latin Americans had minimal rights. Racism strongly affected the United States and its people and still continues to affect us today. Before 1967, many U.S. states banned interracial marriage. White supremacy, which Wikipedia defines as belief and promotion of the belief that white people are superior to people of other racial backgrounds, held dominance before the American Civil War and even after the Reconstruction era. The most known white supremacy group is the Ku Klux Klan, also known as the KKK. The 21st century attempts to change racism in society. There is legislation against discrimination in America. Even though racism is not as blatant as it was in previous centuries, it is still present. The issues of racism are most times unspoken. Most Americans do not want to be depicted or seen as racist and therefore stray from expressing their opinion on the subject. Popular culture that touches on the emotional and sometimes even sickening parts of racism help our culture and society to understand unspoken current-day racism. We decided to hear opinions on racism in popular culture. We wanted to interview high school students who had learned about the history of racism from their social studies classes and are also interested in popular culture because of their age. It's apparent that most students, even in their teenage years, still struggle with expressing their opinions on racism because they do not want to be seen as racist or talk about such a sensitive subject.
After watching these clips, I think we have a lot to learn and talk about how pop culture influences us, about racism and that.
And I think we need to also think about how we need to address these ideas in our society and not just overlook them, because there's a lot more to racism than just what we think. So we need to think about the bigger picture rather than just ourselves and not be selfish about the idea.
And the movies help us to understand that.
Thank you.
Thank you.